these are designed to share a blue technology. So that's happening here. So I invite either the founder or CEO of a blue tech company to come share the technology, the problem they're trying to solve, and also, it's also an opportunity to connect with each other. So really inviting people strategically. It's obviously open to everybody, but I always invite the founder and I say, who would you like them to be there? Because sometimes connections, I want it to be a win for everybody. I value everybody's time, so I want you to feel like it was worthwhile. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Andrew Gregg, who is co-founder and CTO of HavocAl. He's going to tell you about the company and share some videos and slides, and then there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. Andrew is open to having you ask questions throughout, so don't feel like you have to wait till the end to ask a question. We want this to be engaging and interesting and fun. What I love to do is start off by just saying your name and why you're here. So if you're a curious citizen or if you are in the industry or whatever it is, just very brief who you are, who with the company, and why you're here. That would be helpful to Andrew to know who's here. So welcome, Andrew.
Thank you.
And I'm going to end with you, I think, with saying a little bit about yourself before you start talking about Havoc. Okay? So my role is to support entrepreneurs through programming and events. So this is just one of the programs that we offer.
Awesome. I'm Pat Sabatino. I'm the event co-chair for the Newport Investor Summit. We have a dedicated track for Blue Tech at the event, so we're looking for 12 Blue Tech companies to pitch to an audience of 75 to 100 early phase investors. I'm also with YHub, who's partnered with Innovate People in a number of companies.
Hi, my name is Steve Over. I'm just a local Newport person who's involved in businesses and technology. I can do as much as possible to support it. I'm Andrew.
Awesome. Thanks for making the time.
We've been with education and business.
I'm Katie Loza. I'm with a company called Real-Time Innovations, or RTI, headquartered in California, but I'm the local account manager. We work with a bunch of maritime technology companies in the region. We provide a software solution that goes inside. Familiar with some folks in this room.
I'm Paul Schmidt. I'm the field application engineer. Work with Katie, Real-Time Innovations. Great.
Yeah, it's good to see you both again, actually.
Sean Hawkins, I'm with Ingenuity. We are a product development firm specializing in solving challenges in maritime and harsh environments.
I'm Pat Moran. I'm with Exhale. We are a French-based company. We specialize in navigation systems and different oceanographic systems. And we have an office here in Lincoln, Rhode Island.
Also from Exhale, work out of an office.
My name is Brent Carter. I was one of the founding members of Sea Satellites, based out of California.
Danya, Hub International. So I handle all marine insurance for
I'm Hans Scholl. I'm CEO of XGC, Exponential Growth Consulting, and I have about 35 years of leadership experience in the marine, the pharmaceutical, and the life science industries. What a mix, and I'm using that experience to support high-performing corporate clients and entrepreneurs achieve goals that are impossible to them. That
I'm Roger Wells. I'm retired from 50 years or so in this oceanographic navigation software development.
Dave Ford, angel investor in Blue Tech.
Ian Espanoin, Gyro Robotics CEO, co-founder, and I'm here because I'm really interested in what you've got to say, but also the conversation afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
And Ian will be giving us a Blue Tech talk.
Yeah.
Something like,
Yes.
my name is Barry Ayer. I'm with Full Sail Management. I'm working with
Steve and Patrick now, and we're working to help kind of generate an ecosystem to support small companies, kind of figure out strategy, financing, or pre-seed investment, and specializing in blue tech and dual-use marine technologies.
Steve Bonaro, I worked for the Navy for at least a couple more months, and then I'm going to be getting the startup program.
Awesome. You want to say who you are?
I don't really want to.
Okay.
I'm with Newport this week. I'm here for curiosity purposes.
Thanks for being here.
Mike Collins, I'm with Havoc, I'm Andrews +1.
Awesome. Well, wow, there's a great diversity of people in the room. Clearly a lot of knowledge and great resources, so I really do hope you'll connect with each other as well. Andrew, take it away. And let us know if you can't hear him well, because we do have the mic.
And I'll just mention Mike is very humble, but he's our operations and test lead, and as you're going to see, that's a huge job for the number of boats that we're looking for and managing. Yeah, so you got the unfortunate privilege of getting the technical guy today. I wouldn't have called myself that probably 10 years ago. My journey, I graduated MIT in 2004, which feels like forever ago. As an aero-astro engineer, I went into the Air Force and flew MC-130s with Air Force Special Operations for 12 years, which caused me to forget everything I learned in engineering school and really focus on operations. I fell in love with tactics and like large-scale deployment of lots of, in this case, manned assets against a common, in a common battle space. So I went to weapons school and focused on basically that while I was in the Air Force. When I got out, I pursued immediately my other passion, which is electrification. So I went to a startup in Boston called XL Fleet, and I was a production director there. We were installing hybrid electric powertrains onto fleet vehicles, so new vehicle upfits, turning them into hybrids. Did that for several years, and then went to Aurora Flight Sciences, which was not quite a startup at the time, and it's now a Boeing company. Aurora Flight Sciences specializes in air vehicles. I've worked on what they call Group 4 or 5 size UAVs, so the largest class of unmanned air vehicles. We had, for example, several surrogates where they were optionally piloted. You could have a pilot in the seat, or they could be autonomously controlled remotely, both on the fixed-wing side and the rotary side, and then got into some smaller UAVs. So predominantly government programs there. I just after that transitioned to Regent, which is, some of you may know, is over in Quonset. I led the test and development of the subscale, the Squire prototype, which is a quarter-scale remotely piloted version of the Sea Glider. It's a technical demonstrator, so its purpose was to do the foil fly mission and prove that that was possible for the first time ever. So pretty much the coolest robot that an engineer could want to work on. 19 different actuators and complexity in a small package. From Regent, I actually ended up meeting two of my fellow co-founders for HavocAl. And HavocAl was founded basically with the premise of how can we bring the low cost back into what the government called attritable. So governments, the DoDs define this class of attritable vessels that are supposed to be, hey, it's nice if they come back. They don't always come back. But beyond that, there's not a lot of definition to the cost. So we wanted to come in with the question of why can't we make attritable at an expendable price point? So you start thinking about real mass that's affordable and achievable to get out in a theater. If you talk more about the Replicator Initiative, and if you're familiar with that and what Secretary Hicks has basically come out and said the DoD needs to do. As well as, of course, we're in a unique time where we're seeing what's happening in Ukraine and how unmanned surface vessels are being employed to great effect. So that was some of the motivation for Havoc. I'll start off with just a quick video here. There are more videos. I'm happy to go in different directions throughout, so totally feel free to interrupt me or bring up the questions as they come along. This is such a great community, so I want to take advantage of getting to know everybody here and getting my input on this. Before I start, I should mention where we are. So we're in East Providence now, working with Fulcrum Speedworks. So if you're familiar with the Phillipsdale Landing facility, that's where they are our boat builder for HavocAl. We've been testing on the CCOM. So this first video is actually, assuming it plays, will be 10 boats going down the CCOM. This was our official first day in the water with 10 different boats. They're running onboard autonomy in order to basically flock or swarm down the river. So they do things on board like path planning. So you give them from A to B, they'll plan around shorelines and obstacles, and then they will collectively avoid one another and do this sort of organic formation behavior as they go down the river.
You ever run into the ground rowers or the Narragansett Boat Club rowers who be doing that?
You have to time it very carefully because there's some very avid rowers out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not looking behind them.
Yeah, no, so we have chase boats out there on the river, and we're constantly scouting back and forth. It's a bit of a small place to test, but it's great to get boats in the water, early. I don't know if you can see it, Phillipsdale is like right over there, so we can just literally launch boats right into the river. So this is who we are. We're building that scalable autonomy that I mentioned at low cost, high rate. We want to, we are, getting able to produce 10 boats a day at our current facility starting in CY25. That's a selling point, is we can ramp very quickly to range production and get vessels out on the water early. One of my experiences at Aurora Flight Sciences with air vehicles is it's really difficult to get them into the air to test, even if they're small. Usually that's a restricted area, that's FAA approvals, that's flight readiness reviews. With boats, because of the risk profile, it's a lot easier to get a lot of reps out in the real water with real robots. So that is what we're structured around, is getting as many boats on the water as frequently as we possibly can to ensure our autonomy quickly.
Question.
Yeah.
Do you have to notify the Coast Guard when you test on these problems?
We technically don't have to. We do maintain a relationship with the Coast Guard. But from a regulatory standpoint, these fall into a gray area of basically being a water toy. Yeah, we don't, I'll caveat that with, we can't provide a hazard navigation, right? So we have to be careful that we're not endangering all the other users of the waterway.
Okay.
As I mentioned, the replicator initiatives, if you're familiar with that, the mandate is to deploy thousands of vessels, particularly with a South China Sea focus. And there's a strategic shift to looking at this asymmetric, what a flight, asymmetric flight would look like with China. I think for me, there are two things that came out of the Ukraine conflict loud and clear. I saw this in Afghanistan. The first one is the asymmetry of warfare, the ability for you to basically take down a multi-million-dollar ship with a less than $100,000 boat. That's just a recurring theme and something that has changed modern warfare, but it's not necessarily new. The other thing that I think is really interesting is the ability to completely deny the use of the water space without having a real navy. And the ability for the Ukrainians to, in ingenious ways, create complete area denial in the Baltic Sea, which from my standpoint can actually be a stabilizing force in a lot of these conflicts that we're going to build in the future. So that's my motivation. Three of the co-founders are military veterans as well, and we'd like not to put on our uniform again and have to go fight a hot war. This is just some more, quotes about why what we're doing is recognized by the DoD as being important. There's a recognition that we need to move towards more unmanned. It needs to be lower cost because we need to buy these in mass and deploy them in mass, and because the theaters that we talked about are huge. The commercial side of the business is there as well. When we talk about autonomy, it's ideally suited for anything that's dull and dangerous that needs to be done around the clock. For example, like the Narragansett Smart Bay Initiative, we're talking about surveying where the channels are just out in the bay. We build boats that could go out in the swarm of 10 in an afternoon and provide a survey of an area and then recover that data back same day. So you can think of them sort of as highly maneuverable buoys and data collection assets. And the mass of getting 10 out there at a time gets that efficiency over a single boat. So it's decreased by factor 10 at a time using these machines. Our approach to Havoc is ambitious. We're building a whole stack from the boat to the control interface, the user interface in the cloud. And again, in past experiences, I've seen people develop autonomy, the platform, and the user interface sort of in isolation and then try to bring them together at integration events. We are taking the approach of just being unconstrained by developing all three in-house and being able to deliver and test a complete package all at the same time. That may not stay that way in the future, but that's our approach right now. It lets us move extremely fast. The particulars of the boat that we first built are up there. We call it Rampage. You can call it a pickup truck of the seas. Essentially, this is a 14-foot long vessel. It's designed primarily for a logistics mission, so it can carry up to 300 pounds of cargo, targeting that inter-island range of up to 150 nautical miles. It's all electric. We included some solar on the bow of the vessel. So it's a charged depleting design, but it has solar power so for loitering or for pulling the boat up on the beach and like charging it over a period of a few days. That's the ambition of solar. From there, we equip each boat with onboard autonomy, which we call HavocOS, and that connects to a cloud backend and then a cloud-based front end. I'll show you some pictures of that. These are boat building partners. When we first started Havoc, we did not want to become boat builders. Boats have been around for thousands of years, and there are people who build them very well, especially here in Rhode Island. So we were fortunate enough to find someone who builds vessels of this size using a highly scalable and quite automated process. We were able to go from producing rockets and UFOs to producing our vessels by using a CNC plug mold build-up concept in basically 2 months. And that speaks to kind of the ability to alter the design of the boat quickly when you're working with a very experienced boat builder. And then once you have those molds for fiberglass, it's a very low cost and highly repeatable process. You're essentially making muffins in a tin, right? You make more molds, you set up 5 molds, 5 lines, you turn 2 boats out of the mold every day, that's 10 boats. And it's been done there already at that rate, so we're not trying to reinvent again how boats are being made. One thing we are kind of excited about is in the future taking that process and being able to deploy it downrange in some form. So whether that means we're building decks and hulls and nesting them together and sending them downrange to a container where they can be then bonded together for final assembly, or as far as actually just sending the molds out to the inner where you can build the boats in situ. Kind of the reason for that is it comes down to like volumetric constraints of like, a boat is essentially an air capsule that you're now shipping across the ocean in an airplane, which is volumetrically like very expensive. So, and if you look at, it's a bad example, but you look at the cartels, they've been able to build fiberglass submarines in the rainforest, so it's not impossible. So building up from the boat, what we do on the autonomy side should be very familiar to like the RTI folks. We run a microservices architecture on board, which uses DDS as its middleware to transport between different services. That enables us to keep everything like very modular. The way it works, the way we envision it working currently is you have teams of boats, you assign boats into teams. You can have a team of 1 boat, but typically it'll be 4 to 5, or whatever's required for that particular play. You then assign that team a play. That play gets decomposed by the members of the team and gets executed on board. So after you've assigned the play, if it's something that's hands-off, mostly like patrol or ISR, they can autonomously execute that with little to no human intervention. There are also mechanisms where if something needs to be authorized, like, hey, go from search to investigate this track, then the user could be in the loop to actually provide that authorization. The play analogy, it's a football thing, so it works essentially the same way. The user, or the coach, if you call a play, you have an expectation of what the team is going to do. You don't necessarily maneuver each player to do it, but you have an overall understanding because you wrote the playbook that you know what activities to execute. So the next evolution of this is basically going from that playbook residing on board to that playbook being something that an operational user can design and can create using what I would think of as the next level of autonomy and mission planning, which is I'm not defining waypoints, I'm defining a graph or a playbook of what should transpire.
I have a question. Yeah. In your last bullet for your play description, you mentioned like a prolonged autonomous ops in common-denied environments. Is that also like a GNSS service denied environment as well, or purely
Trickier, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a tricky problem. So on the GNSS side, we're looking at it two ways. Number one, having a lot of vessels over a large area, it's difficult to deny GPS to all of them, so we don't make ourselves an easy target, and we expect that some vessels will be jammed out. We're also working with a company called Locust Lock. They make a GPS, a software-defined GPS that uses the full constellation and all the different bands to vastly improve your GPS performance and also like actively rejects the jamming of importance.
So you're not like using like each of those positions?
That's kind of another avenue we haven't gone down yet, but that's definitely an opportunity. And one thing we also just started talking about recently was using that ability to provide position to subsurface vessels, but gets into some more exotic things I'll talk about with China. Well, this is just some screenshots of our UX. So again, we're actually working with a company called OctoPD over in Providence. Do we have some from Octo? There's maybe one on the sheet, but awesome product design firm. And they take a real kind of clean sheet, multidisciplinary approach to design, which is not what you would get under a traditional DoD contract. So they're thinking about like, how do you take massive multiplayer gaming experience and bring that to what we're trying to do? Because it's essentially very similar. You know, you can play online games where you're managing hundreds or maybe even 1,000 different players. You're not micromanaging each of them. They have teams and roles and capabilities, and so you're assigned them to tasks and missions. So that's been really cool. We also extend our user interface. This is cloud-based. We extend to a system called ATAC, our Android Tactical Assault Kit, which is carried by Marines and soldiers and airmen on the ground, usually on a tablet or a smartphone, to provide them an interaction with our boats from shore to boat. And we just did that, integrated that for Silent Swarm, which we used out last 2 weeks. Yeah, this is our differentiation slide, fundraising stuff. Speed, scale, data, that's our play. And then an eye chart. But again, we were just founded in January, so this is brand new. We started off with a prototype on the water, doing just a hardware functional test bed. We have a third scale model that we played around with for all the performance characterization. And then we eventually, in May, had basically 10 boats out on the water doing that first collaborative mission. We just went to Silent Swarm out of Michigan, where we brought 12 boats, had them out on the water doing contested logistics, find, fix, intercept, blockade missions, as well as just ISR using payloads from 8 different providers that came along and integrated onto our boats. And this is the team. So we're 4 veteran co-founders, and we're currently a team of 10. So, and it's been really really fun to attract talent, both on the former military side, but also from the civilian side, who are actively looking to build connections to bring in things like like OptoPD or others who come from a completely different perspective at this problem. Because it is a new space when you really think about going from autonomous vehicles that are designed to follow waypoints to thinking about how we scale this to a whole system. And that's where we are in terms of fundraising. We're currently raising the seed. Just kicked it off on the heels of Simon's work. So I'll stop talking now. Sure. So organically, we have a stereo camera that we use for close-in obstacle avoidance. So buoys, ships, docks, things like that. Operationally, we've integrated an EOIR gimbal ball. We've integrated several passive RF sensors from other companies. We're still young, so if I integrate, I often mean they put it on our boat. They ran it remotely. They gathered lots of data. We put them in a good position to gather that data. But the next step will be to more closely integrate that. We also integrated RF decoys, which is a really interesting application for us at our speeds and numbers to be able to go out and replicate like a destroyer that's under emissions control, right? So it's just leaking out some signals pretending to be a US destroyer. Multiply that by 10 or 20, great problem.
Are there any sensors that are on your wish list, like magnetometers for mine surveys, or bathymetry for landing?
Yeah, so we are doing a depth sensor putting on our boats next week actually. Side scan sonar would be interesting, like low side scan. I think anything in the EOIR spectrum gimbal or somehow stabilized but low cost. There's this real gap between commercially available EOIR and then a fully gimbal rotary market solution that costs $30 to $40K per.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you want it to be a triple law, so.
Yeah. So the overall target cost of our boats is $250 to $75 per technician. So yeah, we don't want the sensor to cost just close.
You don't want to dump all that into a sensor.
Unless you wanted to,
Yeah.
So you're in a phase where it's almost a lot more happening than we can manage and control. So everybody's kind of spitballing and seeing what sticks. How do you envision the size of the company, in-house work versus outsourcing over the next, let's say, couple of years? I think you probably can't even predict that.
No, it's difficult. I think our growth projection for next year is to go to 30 employees. And then we've had really good luck with outsourcing. Mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, the design that I mentioned, this back-end software development. We have a teammate from the healthcare industry who's just been phenomenal in terms of providing secure back-ends. Apparently that's a thing that you need in healthcare too. So yeah, I think for the next year, it would probably be close to 50-50 mix of full-time employees.
How many vehicles have you guys made so far?
We have 12 fully functional and we have 15 total balls. So we have some already here. We wanted to make enough, I know we want to make an impressive number of balls, right? But we also wanted to take enough to an exercise where if you have 10 boats, it kind of forces you into this paradigm of thinking, well, maybe I'll just have 5 do this and I'll have 5 do that. And because I'm one human, I'm saturated in micromanaging about 4 to 5, so I really have to think about a higher level. So it wasn't just a flex to see how many boats we can make.
What would you locate in southeastern, New England, around here?
Oh, I mean, New England is easy. So it's it's a hub of talent, and the access to the water is unprecedented. That's not called the ocean state for no reason. So, right. And Rhode Island in particular is a great area to test because you have a variety of conditions all the way from the seacon out to while before we got the sound.
Ask, do you have like certain missions that you folks want to do and packages that you create that you can modularly put on and off the boat to change its characteristics?
Yeah, so the way we're trying to think of that is to create reusable behaviors that can be applied in different missions, rather than like create a mission package for search. We might have a behavior for search that could be used by changing different parameters, could be used for minesweeping or control or survey, for example. So that's the library of behaviors approach that they can then be used in the playbook constructs to fill in those different tasks of the play. Make sense?
So would you need different sensors of different missions?
Different sensors, yes, and different capabilities on the boats. And part of that, part of the play construct is, the first step in many plays would be like assess my capabilities on the team. Who has the EOIR sensor? Who's got the RF sensor? And what roles are they going to branch to? So, sir, I'm sorry.
That's okay. In a remote theater, how would you launch and retrieve a big swarm of these things, logistically?
Yeah, so it's been great because we actually are outnumbered by our boats right now. I don't know if I have any pictures of it, but what we've come up with is, it's sort of like a sailing regatta, where these boats are big enough to be on their own dollies. So we have a dolly for each boat in our current setup. We have a side-by-side Polaris that we can pull in and out of the water. At Silent Swarm, we developed a launch ramp. So we're basically able to back the dolly up and shove it down the launch ramp because we didn't have a proper beach. We just had a bulkhead. Launch it down, reach it back up on sort of a funicular setup.
Oh, is that just something different? So you might need a man ship to have a bunch of these?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we're playing with as well. How do you launch from this ship?
Yeah.
Couples very tightly with the request for full self-righting ability, because that kind of gives you the ability to just shove a boat off the ship and have it landed.
And can you launch it from the air? I would assume something.
We're not focused on airdrop right now because it adds a lot of structural complication to the boat itself. Could be in the future.
Different design point.
I used to airdrop everything, so I miss that. It's really cool, but it's also that I've seen the amount of packaging that goes into airdropping things. It's pretty intense.
We thought about a design that you could nest, so you have the hull and the deck part separately that get assembled on the site.
Yeah, exactly. So the hull and the decks are very close to nesting at this time, and that would save a lot of space. And then the thing that you're deploying downrange is the bonding jig to just glue them together.
Do you have competitors or other companies doing something similar? And if so, what's different about it?
That's a great question. So we do have, I would say we have competitors, but we have, what I've observed is a lot of people in the space taking a different approach, which is to focus on these more highly bespoke vessels. They're focusing a lot on the design of the boat. And sometimes that takes the form of, carbon fiber construction, which can be more expensive, a lot more hands-on labor and integration of the boat itself. So we're sort of bucking that trend by saying, let's decomplicate the boat as much as possible. Let's focus on the mass and the autonomy of getting really multiple boats out of the water as fast as possible. So, it's hard to put us in the same bucket as like Saronic, who is now a unicorn defense company. But we look at what they're doing. I think there's room for all of that in the space. Replicator is an initiative to buy thousands of boats. So it's going to be us, Saronic, CSATs, OpenT. There's plenty of space to see. It's a big ocean. Yes. Yeah.
You mentioned that you can use the same tech stack regardless of hardware. So I'm curious how difficult would it be to, set the system up on a boat that you're not specifically designed for this?
Yeah, I did, we did start with the idea of just developing an autonomy kit that could be put on any boat. It's not quite that simple. There are nuances to every boat in terms of not just steering and and throttle, but like systems management. So it's electrification helps with a lot of that, right? Because you don't have to, for a large part, you don't have to monitor like engine temperatures, oil pressures, and things like that. But it's still, there's a lot of tuning and integration that goes into adapting like autonomy into any boat. So I would say, yeah, it's possible. It's not something that we're really focused on right now.
You mentioned you had solar panels to recharge your batteries, but what's your typical life of the kind of charge, and how does it last in order for it to be recharged?
Yeah, so it depends a lot on, what you mean, overall lifespan of the,
No, not
or
like
just
on
on
a
mission?
particular mission, yeah. Like, what's the use time for a particular mission?
It depends.
How intense it is?
So it's gonna depend on how fast you're operating primarily, because your power draw for propulsion is related to your velocity squared on a boat. So, for example, if you're doing 2 to 3 knots on a sunny day with the energy positive, even while we're running Starlink, things like that. If we're going faster than that, you're gonna be charged depleting like in the 4 to 6 to 8 to 10 knot range. What that means in practical terms is if you need to do a mission that's 150 nautical miles and you want to keep a single battery, you're going to do that at 2 to 3 knots. If you want to double the battery, you can probably do that at like 3 to 4 knots.
Night
And if
missions,
you,
obviously.
sorry?
Night missions would be, you can't get recharged at night. The tidal conditions too are at night, right?
Yeah. So you strike this balance between loitering or drifting, and then it becomes kind of a higher level problem of like how and where are you deploying these assets, like in what conditions. So we wanted to make a boat that was capable of making headway in adverse conditions, but I think the realistic planning use case for these boats is you're going to optimize, hey, I'm going to use these boats in fair conditions, predominantly get from A to B. I'm going to optimize when they're traveling, when they're charging, using basically a cloud-based interface for this. That's specific to electrification. If we do go with something like a gas power plant in the future, there's totally different concerns there. The advantage of electrification, one advantage of electrification aside from the simplicity is we can actually deploy to an area, loiter, and recharge, rather than just being continuously burning fuel, arrive really fast to an area and have like nothing left to investigate a target or something. Not sure if I fully answered your question, but it's a lot of variables.
Do you guys have any concerns with like the current contractor-owned, contractor-operated model that the Navy tends to use, more so than like the Navy purchase and operation? Do you guys see that as part of your business moving forward, or you just want to sell and operate?
It's something that we're going to get involved with in the course of like these trial programs for the Navy, but it's not our long-term vision. So yes, I mean the next path for us in the next year or so is going to be probably a bit of contract COCO model, just so we can get our tech out there quickly and support it alongside the customer. But we want to move beyond that, just make it mature enough that they just outright buy it. It's a stepping stone.
So I have a couple of naive questions. I hope I don't bore all the technological experts. Well, why did you call the company Havoc? Because Havoc is usually not viewed by most people as a good thing. So, can you explain that to me?
And Havoc plus AI, I can see.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So Paul, my fellow co-founder, is a naval test pilot grad and a RAL pilot. So one of the call signs he used this happened when they were jamming and creating confusion for the adversary.
Okay.
So when we think about mass and attributable mass, havoc and confusion for the adversary is definitely one of the goals. That's why I mentioned like putting an RF decoy on there to pretend to be something they're not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is your primary market, would you say, for military, not so much commercial use?
It's primarily, yeah. I mean, a lot of these behaviors and conditions are dual use. I think about like harbor patrol or mine sweeping versus surveying. There's a high degree of overlap in terms of like what we can develop, but right now we're primarily defense focused. We're definitely interested in looking for commercial applications.
So I just want to jump on that. Do you have any sense of whether people in commercial maritime industry are moving in this direction, or are they weary?
I think, and maybe it's naive in saying that they like haven't seen this approach yet.
Okay.
I hate to sound like Steve Jobs. I built something so incredible the world has never seen before. But what I mean by that is like, if you're currently collecting data from buoys that are stationary, you have a poor data link to, and you have to go out and service them, every season, you might not be thinking about your ability to get that data just in an afternoon from like 10 boats and cover a huge area.
Yeah.
So, it's my hope that people will see the opportunity there in the commercial market for monitoring, control, survey, waterways management, compliance.
Just, I'm thinking about how people have responded to autonomous cars. And what the average person is thinking, I don't want to deal with that. But maybe it has.
We're not asking people to get in our boats. We're not asking people to get in our boats.
No, I get it. I get it.
But share the water with them, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
For information gathering missions, you get data off the boat real time?
Yes.
Radio links, or how do you secure that?
Yeah, so we're currently using a mesh radio for line of sight, boat to boat, and also a Starlink backhaul, which is basically an IP-based beyond line of sight radio. So how do we secure that? We're using basically certs and like IoT technology. That's I'm kind of familiar with routing services and stuff that RTI provides, and I'm actually very interested in talking to you guys about that. But the comment about using like a healthcare system backend is related to sort of how we envision our boats acting as like IoT endpoints connected to a secure cloud.
You mentioned you're doing BDS anyway, so you could use secured.
You may have already answered this, so forgive me, but to the point of sharing the water, so if these are out, will they detect, like a sailboat or a kayaker, will it detect something and whirl away or anything?
Yes, they will. Not right now, but not this week, but
Yeah.
So that's what the stereo camera we're working on for close and obstacle detection is primarily for buoys, kayakers, other boats.
But the whole pod doesn't have to start, it's like the one, right?
Yeah. They can individually detect and share, they can share that track amongst themselves, but the one which is.
How do you do collision avoidance at night then?
And that becomes a problem. It's more difficult. With the long wave IR sensor, we're trying to stay away from radar because it's very power hungry. And this is where, for commercial uses, you're probably not going to see us out in the storm at night on the Narragansett Bay anytime real soon, unless we're very well lighted and marked. For military missions, frankly, they don't care. A lot of times our boats are small enough that if you ran one over in a destroyer, you would notice. there's that sort of like military risk tolerance / flotsam approach that they're willing to take.
For the future later, our students who are now K through 16, what types of hard soft skills would they need? That seems to be a problem that we don't have in the curriculum. So what are you looking for?
So, and this might just be my predisposition, but I'm really interested in folks who have had a hands-on robotics experience.
Yes, we have robotics students.
And who really, personally, I like to see people who have hobbies involved with robotics or in vehicles or in clubs, where they've had to bring software skills, hands-on with hardware, because there's, a lot of very unexpected things happen when you try to bring hardware in contact with software for the first time, and I think people learn a tremendous amount from that experience doing that integration.
This might be a tough question, but do you have any competition with like autonomous submersibles? Like I know those are being developed as well for data collection and
Yeah, I'm actually headed back after this, so I want to talk with them, and I'd like to talk with Jaya as well. I see it as completely complementary.
Okay, so it
yeah.
would be a compliment.
Yeah, and really similar with UAVs, and you can watch kind of how the Ukrainians have integrated both UAVs together. But we have a lot of complementary capabilities. The boat is able to provide like high spot size, weight, and power. We can carry additional batteries, charging infrastructure. We can bring shorter range assets like out into a meaningful area, release them. For UUVs, we can provide that air to water interface where you can get comm from terrestrial or Starlink and then actually use like an interesting mode to communicate with submarines. Provide location services for submarines. UAVs, like quadcopters or smaller fixed wing, really cool because they have a lot of high speed and get a good vantage point for ISR missions, but they're very range limited. So again, we can bring them closer to the target interest. So I 100% complimentary.
You envision a combination on a few vessels and launch quadcopter, for instance, bring it closer so that the range limitation doesn't take turn into a problem.
Yes, that's actually what I guess it's best built for getting a vantage point, increasing the range.
Any other questions? Well, we'll measure, but,
I really appreciate the time in this venue and you great group of people, so thank you.
yeah, please feel free to hang around and mingle with each other and ask questions. But thank you all so much for coming. Thank
You guys are good. Our company.
Yeah.
I think I can.
Oh,
Remember sitting
yeah.
across the table, both of us. Yeah, I go. Those edges don't know too much what's going on. You know what that I deliver the system.